Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today. Today, we'll be exploring a fascinating topic, the long-standing debate between identity-first and person-first language. We'll look at why language really matters in how we communicate about identity and disability. Over the course of this presentation, we'll discuss different perspectives, the implications of each approach, and how our words can influence perceptions. So, let's get started and dive into this important conversation. Let's take a moment to consider how we describe individuals with disabilities, diseases, and health conditions. The words we choose do more than just communicate information. They actually reflect our attitudes and beliefs. But more importantly, those words actively shape societal perceptions, influence policies, and even impact how people see themselves. Now, this brings us to the stakes involved. Language is not just a tool we use, it's one of our most fundamental tools. It shapes how we think about the world and the people around us. The words we use can reinforce stereotypes, challenge them, or help break them down. This is why language is so powerful. It holds the power to shape perceptions, to influence attitudes, and ultimately, to affect real change. When we talk about individuals with disabilities or health conditions, our words can either promote understanding and inclusion or deepen misunderstandings and biases. So, understanding the power of words is essential in fostering a more inclusive and respectful society. It's about recognizing that our language choices matter, because they do. On this slide, we're looking at how language around disabilities has been shaped by important laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, known as IDEA. These laws have played a crucial role in promoting respectful and inclusive language. A key aspect of this approach is the legal endorsement of person-first language, which emphasizes the individual before the condition. For example, saying person with autism or people with disabilities puts the focus on the person, highlighting their humanity rather than defining them solely by their diagnosis. This core principle actually originated from social movements like the People First movement in the 1970s and the People with AIDS movement in the 1980s. These movements responded to dehumanizing language that marginalized individuals, and they helped shift the focus towards dignity and respect. Overall, person-first language is about emphasizing the humanity of every individual, reminding us to see beyond the diagnosis and recognize each person's unique identity. This approach ties directly into our broader theme of fostering understanding and respect in all interactions. Let's take a moment to explore how language can shape our understanding of identity. Influenced heavily by the deaf and autistic communities, identity-first language has gained traction as a meaningful counter-narrative to the traditional person-first framing. Instead of saying, a person with autism, we say, autistic person. This shift emphasizes that disability is an integral part of who someone is, rather than something separate or secondary. This approach aligns closely with the social model of disability, which suggests that it's not individual conditions that create disability, but societal structures, barriers, and attitudes. When we adopt this perspective, we recognize that society's environment often limits participation, not the condition itself. A key point here is that disability is seen as a source of pride, autonomy, and agency. It's not something to overcome or hide. Rather, it's part of a person's identity. The goal of this language choice is to put the identity label first. So, autistic person or disabled person, treating disability as an inherent and natural part of who someone is. This core principle of identity-first language, embracing identity, helps us foster respect and understanding. It encourages us to see individuals as whole persons, with their disability being a valued part of their identity, not a flaw to be fixed. Choosing identity-first language is really an act of self-definition and celebration. It's about owning and embracing a core part of who you are. When we talk about reclaiming the narrative, we're emphasizing that autism is understood as an integral part of identity. It shapes how individuals experience the world, how they think, and how they solve problems. It's not something to be cured or separated from oneself. Now, why does this language matter? Research consistently shows that a strong majority of autistic adults prefer to identify as autistic person rather than person with autism. This preference reflects a desire to see autism as part of their identity, not something separate or secondary. This perspective is very important to the autism community. It highlights the importance of affirming how people choose to identify and the significance of language in shaping how society understands autism. So, embracing this identity-first language aligns with respecting individual self-perceptions and fostering a more inclusive, understanding environment. Both framings can be valid and respectful. What really matters is to follow the individual's preference. When we talk about the identity-first approach, we're embracing disability as a core, inseparable part of who someone is. It's about rejecting the idea that disability should be minimized or set apart from the person's identity. Instead, it's seen as an integral aspect of their self. On the other hand, the person-first perspective emphasizes the individual before the condition. It highlights that a person is more than their disability and should not be defined solely by it. They might prefer to be called a person with a disability. Both ways of framing can be respectful, but the key is always to prioritize what the individual prefers. This aligns with the overall goal of fostering understanding and respecting individual identities. There is no single right answer when it comes to respecting individual preferences. Genuine respect means staying curious and following each person's lead. Language preferences are not monolithic. Even within a single community or family, people may hold different, yet equally valid views. This is where the critical nuance comes in. Some communities within this group still largely prefer person-first language, which reflects the diversity of perspectives across disability communities. For example, when it comes to intellectual disabilities, many prefer to be called deaf with an uppercase D signaling cultural identity, rather than person with hearing loss or hearing impaired. And when we look at the deaf community, we see a strong cultural identity that shapes language preferences. This extends beyond autism, too. There are diverse preferences across different groups. The key takeaway here is to always approach these topics with curiosity, respect, and an openness to learn each individual's preferred way of being identified. As we look at this slide, I want to emphasize how each phase in this journey reflects a deeper cultural reckoning with how we view disability. It starts with fighting dehumanization, which has historically been a major issue, where disabled people were often seen as less than human. Then, we move toward restoring personhood, recognizing the full humanity and individual identity of disabled people. From there, the focus shifts to embracing disability as an integral part of identity itself. This includes reclaiming language, using terms like disabled and crip, which have been historically stigmatized, but are now being reappropriated to foster pride and community. Language reform plays a crucial role here, aiming to restore dignity and challenge demeaning or dehumanizing terminology that was once normalized. It's about shifting from a person-first perspective, that is, saying person with a disability, to a broader cultural acceptance that disability is a natural and valid aspect of human diversity. Finally, you'll see how the debate around language and identity has evolved. What used to be considered negative labels is increasingly seen as neutral or even positive, empowering people to define their own identities on their own terms. Overall, this slide highlights an important evolution, moving from a view of disability rooted in harm and dehumanization, toward a recognition and celebration of identity, dignity, and community. It's about transforming not just language, but the entire cultural narrative around disability. When we talk about respectful language, it's not just about the words we choose, but also about the actions we take to back them up. Promoting inclusion means actively working to remove barriers and create genuine opportunities for everyone. It's about aligning our words with meaningful actions. While community preferences can be helpful as a guide, we need to remember that personal preferences always come first. What someone prefers in terms of how they're identified should take precedence over general rules or assumptions. This is where context really matters. The most respectful approach is to ask individuals directly how they want to be identified. And then, once they share their preference, it's crucial that we honor that consistently. The key is to ask first, never assume, and then listen carefully. Asking and listening helps us find the right approach, making sure our actions are respectful and authentic. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels seen, valued, and respected. Inclusive communication is really an ongoing practice, not just something we check off a list. It's a true commitment to honor and respect everyone's experiences. Keep learning is essential because developing a deeper understanding of disability means moving beyond one-size-fits-all rules and approaches. We need to prioritize individual preferences, recognizing that language is always evolving, and those with lived experience are the best guides to what's respectful and appropriate. Listening to self-advocates is key, because their insights help us shape more genuine, respectful communication. Remember, the goal isn't just about choosing the right words, it's about making sure our language truly reflects respect and understanding. Looking ahead, the future of language is all about being inclusive and respectful. It's a continuous journey that requires us to stay open, listen, learn, and adapt. When we do this, we create a more welcoming and understanding environment for everyone.